Hello, CA warriors. How are you all doing? Friends, today we are going to start with a very interesting topic. But, friends, before that, remember the goal of this video is not to go deep into every single concept, but to give you a crisp, exam oriented summary so that you know what is important and how to remember it smartly. This book and video together will act as your perfect self study partner. And I'm super confident, guys, that after this revision, you will be able to solve any MCQ that come your way in the exam. So let's begin this rapid fire revision session. And yes, if you find these notes helpful, don't forget to share them with your friends. Guys, before we begin, pause for a second and think that every country wants more exports, better market access, low trade barriers. But here is the reality: no country can force another country to trade on its terms. So, what do country do? They sit together, they discuss, they bargain, they negotiate. And that entire process is called trade negotiation, which is our today's topic, Unit 3. Remember this line, guys. Trade do not happen by accidents. Trade happens by negotiations. Let us now build this chapter step by step, exactly that the way it has been examined. So now today we are discussing a part A, trade agreements. A very basic but very important question. Now, the first question arises is, what is trade negotiation? Guys, trade negotiation is actually a process in which two or more nations meet together to discuss the possibility of trade. That the final objective of this discussion is to reach to the trade agreement. So I can say that negotiation is not the agreement itself. Negotiation is a path to leads to the agreement. Now the question arises, why does country negotiate? Guys, reasons are very simple. Because every country wants maximum benefits, every country want minimum sacrifices, and negotiate help countries decide tariffs, decide market access, decide rules of trade. So simple, guys. In simple understanding, I can say negotiation is a discussion stage and agreement is a decision stage. So now let us understand what are the types of trade agreements. Now we can come to the core of this unit. There are different types of trade agreements depending on number of countries involved, nature of cooperation, level of integration. We will take them one by one without skipping anything. Now, the first type of trade agreement is unilateral agreement. Guys, meaning a unilateral trade agreement is one where only one country take the decision. The decision is initiated by that country, implemented by only that particular country. No other country is required to agree. Now, guys, the key feature of this actually unilateral agreement is it is a one country decision, no negotiation from other side. Now, so I can say there is no reciprocity. This means other countries are not required to give any concession in returns. Okay, so only one country want to deal with the another country now, and then the unilateral agreement take place. The other country don't require the other country support. Now, so the question arises, why would this country do? Because sometime a country want cheaper imports, or want to show goodwill, or want to simplify trade on its own terms. So I can say that unilateral agreement is equal to one country but no bargaining. Okay. Second is bilateral trade agreement. Bilateral trade agreement In this, two countries are involved. Both countries negotiate, discuss the terms, mutually agrees to it. Now, key feature is trade terms are negotiated, agreements are mutually accepted. There is a reciprocity as benefits. This means each country give offer concessions and in return similar concessions offered by other countries also. So bilateral trade agreement means exactly two countries are involved and actually both the countries want to are willing to trade with each other. Then only bilateral trade agreement take place. So bilateral agreement actually increase the trust, make trade predictable, and strengthen the economic relations. So I can say that bilateral agreement means two countries mutual give and take relationship takes place. Again, broader than bilateral agreement, multilateral trade agreement. Multilateral trade agreement. A multilateral trade agreement involves three or more countries coming together under one single agreement. Guys, it has a very broader scope. Small, same rules apply to actually many countries. So when many countries involved in the same rules, now it takes place. The objective of multilateral trade agreement is to simplify the trade, reduce cost of the trade, create common rules. This avoid separate negotiations with each country. The best example is WTO, means multilateral agreement, means many countries and one rule system. Next is regional trade agreement. Now come a very exam important concept, guys. Exam oriented concept, meaning regional trade agreement involve a smaller group of countries which are geographically close or share common economic interest. Guys, the scope of regional trade agreement now designed to reduce trade barriers and promote trade within the groups. So regional trade agreement is more harmonious and more broader, more emotional attachment agreement. Why regional agreement? Because transport costs should be lower. Now, why regional? Cultural and economic similarity exist. Integration become faster. Thinking process and ideas also matches. Needs and requirement also matches between the group of countries. So they become more closure. So regional trade agreement are of various types. It depends on the needs now and the mergers and the requirements of member countries. Now we can see a step by step types of integrations. Okay, guys, there are 5 to 6 types of regional trade agreements. First is preferential trade agreement. Second is free trade area. Third is custom union. Fourth is common market, Europe economic union, and politic union. You know what, guys? I have kept this a comparison table. Now we will going to understand step by step from least integration to highest integration between the group of the countries. Okay, and least narrow concept to we will going to move to the broader concept, and by comparison you will going to understand more better what is the differences. Now these all agreements have 5 common points. Now comparison, 5 features. First feature is free trade for goods and services, means this group of countries will going to trade between goods and services cross borders. Export and import will take place between their countries. Common external tariff for other non-member countries. Now, those are non-member countries. For them, common tariff measures will be there or not. Free movement of labor, capital, and technology means between the member countries, will they going to allow a free movement of labors, capital, and technology? Means they will going to share the businesses also or not. Sharing common currency, group of countries, member countries may share, are they sharing the common currencies between the countries or not? Or fifth is there might be a common government or not. So these are the 5 points. Now we'll do the comparison and these all agreement based on the 5 features. Let's start from narrow concept one. First is preferential trade agreement. Guys, in this, member, all the features are no. There is no free trade between preferential trade agreements. Preferential trade agreement me means there is no free trade also. There will be a lower tariff, means lower tariff among themselves. Trade is not truly free. This is the lowest level of integration. This is the various lowest level of integration. Preferential trade agreement means members are not required. Members will going to charge each other while exchanging the goods a small tariff. Now come to the next, free trade area. Guys, in free trade area, free trade of goods, as the name itself indicates, there'll be free trade of goods and services among the members. Each country maintain its own tariff for non-members. Okay, now, each member, the member countries will going to not charge a single rupee tariff import duty. There'll be free trade of only goods and services, and rest other features are not involved into. Means free trade area means member countries just will going to trade with each other. There is no other emotional conditions. Okay, custom union, little bit again broader than free trade area. Bit under custom union, feature number one and two will be get integrated. That is, between member countries, free trade of goods and services will take place, as well as those countries which are not members, group of countries will going to charge them common tariff, no differentiated between the tariffs. Means if any non-member country want to do export and import with any of the member country, the import duty and export duty will be the same. Okay, that is called custom union. Now, and this remove tariff difference between within the groups actually. Okay. Now, more broader concept than custom union, common market. Common market, in common market, free trade of goods and services will take place between member countries, and common tariff will be charged by the member countries to other non-member countries. But one more extra feature now, that is, between member countries, all countries are allowing for the free movement of labors, capital, and technology. Means they are freely to share the technologies, know-how now, and they are merging the economy business wise. Okay, so common market is more broader than the custom union. Now, economic integration depends further. Then next comes economic union. Economic union, all four features are common as common market. All three features are common. One things is extra, along with free movement of labor, capital, and technology. Guys, these member countries are sharing common currency also. The best example is European Union. European Union have created a common currency euro, which is accepted by all the member countries. Oh, so common currency, common macroeconomic policies means to the world they are saying now business wise we are one, our currency is also one. Now the broadest concept is political union. Political union, all four features of Euro economic union are common, but guys, in this one more is added. They share common government and common political decisions. Means actually now they are not getting into the agreement, they are becoming a one nation. All member countries show them they are actually one. Their government is also will remain common. Now, for example, the best example is United States of America. It's US. This is the highest possible level of integration now possible. Means they show we are not a different countries, we are actually a one country. So many types of regional trade agreements are there. All of you understood? Yes. Now, next, after understanding various types of agreements, let's get into the one more important topic now, that is General Agreement of Tariff and Trade. It's a GATT. Now we move to a historical foundation of global trade rules. Guys, GATT has been established in 1947 with a very broader vision in that era. The purpose of GATT was to reduce the trade barriers, tariff quotas, and promote free trade. Now, the intentions was very good, guys, and promoting free trade. But the broader concept, GATT was established, the very first world organization, I can say, who was whose objective was just to promote the world trade now and remove trade barriers. GATT aimed to create a multilateral trading systems, establish clear trade rules, and provide a mechanism to settle dispute among the member countries. Guys, when this GATT was created in 1947, initially there were 20 countries signed this agreement. But by 1994, there was total 128 countries become the member of the GATT. Now, the organizational structure of the GATT was there was a one major department called Council of Trade in Goods. It is also called Goods Council, and the goods council was having actually 10 sub departments, or I can say 10 committees, which used to cover and handle a different matters among the member countries like market access, agriculture, technical barrier to trade, now sanitary and psychosanitary measures, etc. Guys, such a good intention, what a great objective, now where they were supporting to each and every country. But one question arises, then why GATT was replaced by the WTO? Guys, let us understand the reasoning clearly. GATT now l- there was a four major problems. GATT was become into a limited scope. As in 1947, GATT was introduced, but gradually, slowly, countries become modernized. New trade, new concept, new dimensions has been came into the existence. Now, GATT was become outdated. Get did not adjusted, did not able to adopt the new constraints, the new difficulties, modern difficulties were coming up between the member countries. So GATT covered only goods at that time. It did not cover any kind of services and intellectual properties. Because at that time, import and export of goods you only used to take place. There was no importance of services. Modern economists have given the importance of services now, but it was not involved in the GATT. First, limited scope. Second, now weak dispute resolutions was there. No permanent dispute settlement mechanism was there. Decisions were not strongly enforceable. Oh, then enforcement issues were there. Guys, get rules were not legally binding actually. Compliances was weak. So get organization not used to make a trade between member countries very smoothly. The disputes was not getting settled. So member countries started now taking get very lightly. And there was an obsolete framework. Means with globalization, new trade issues emerged like agriculture issues, textile issues, international investment issues. GATT was not able to was not able to handle these matters effectively. Result, because of these limitations, World Trade Organization replaced a GATT. Means world was needed a one strong organization now other than GATT. So WTO came into the existence, which is actually a having a wider scope. Now should have a strong dispute settlement mechanism and legally binding rules now, which is a current organization. Finally, guys, this was the remember this was the history of the GATT. Now, and one more thing I can say in a one line before I wind up the topic: negotiation decide the rules, but agreement decide the flow of trade. So our next topic will be about WTO. By that time, hope you understood this topic very clearly. Let me start with one honest question. If the world want free trade, then why do we need a global trade organization at all? Why can't countries just trade freely on their own? Because trade without rules is chaos, and trade with unfair rules is conflict, and trade without rule is chaos. That is why the world needed one common platform, one referee, one rule maker, and that platform is now a World Trade Organization. Remember this mantra before we begin. WTO does not force trade. WTO frame the rules of trade. Now let us build this topic step by step exactly as an examiner expect from you. Now, the first topic is about WTO. Guys, first understand where WTO came from. The WTO is the outcome of Uruguay round, which was the eighth round of a GATT negotiations. Because now it is because earlier the world was governed by GATT, but GATT had limitations. So countries decided we need a stronger, wider, and legal binding system. So the WTO was established on 1st July 1995. Now, this means GATT did not disappear suddenly. WTO replaced it with a greater authority. Now, launched of Uruguay round, it was launched in September 1986. Now, Puta del Estate Uruguay. This round was important because it expanded trade rules beyond goods. It brought services, IPRs, and investment into discussions. Now, Maracca Agreement. Guys, the final act of Uruguay round was signed at Maracca, Morocco. That is why on 15th April 1994 at Maracca, Morocco, this agreement is also called Maracca Agreement. And this agreement officially created WTO regime. Now, the headquarter WTO Secretariat is located at Geneva, Geneva, Switzerland. Okay, friends. Now, WTO total currently 164 countries are members of WTO. This shows WTO is near a universal organization. Most global trade happens under WTO only. Wow. Now, purpose of WTO, why and it was created. Guys, now understand the core reasoning. WTO was created expand the scope of global trade rules, make trade rules comprehensive and make trade rules legally binding. Unlike GATT, WTO includes goods, services, intellectual properties, now and investment related issues. WTO widened trade rules and strengthened the enforcement. Okay. Now, understand the organizational structure of WTO. Guys, it indicates how WTO works internally. First level is ministerial conference, the highest decision making authority. Now, WTO, it in, they can take decisions on all matters under WTO agreements, meets at least once in a 2 years. Now, guys, it is a I can say that it is a parliament of global trade. Under ministerial conference, the second level is called General Council. They works under ministerial conference, meet several times in a year. Now, act as a dispute settlement body and also now they review trade policies. It is also act as a trade policy review body. It reports directly to ministerial conference. The third level comes as a council on under general council. There are three specialized council: goods council, service council, intellectual property council. Now, intellectual property council, their roles: oversee implementation of WTA agreements. It in their respective areas. Each council report to general council. Then committees and working groups. Under each council, there is a working groups, or I can say small committees. There are multiple specialized committees. Example, 11 committees under goods council deal with individual agreements and handle specific trade issues and trade areas. Guys, I can say these all the whole entire structure or WTO is headed by Director General. He or she manage day-to-day administration and secretariat operations. Okay. Now let us understand the 7 point objectives. The first objective is making trade rules. WTO creates and enforce trade rules to ensure trade is smooth, free, fair, and predictable. Reasoning, predictable rules reduces uncertainty and encourage trade. Second, helping countries negotiate. WTO provides a common platform for countries to negotiate. Now, purpose is very simple: to reduce trade barriers, open the markets now, and ensure mutual benefits. Third is solving trade conflicts. When countries violate trade rules, WTO provide dispute settlement mechanism. Why it is important, guys? Because it prevents trade wars and replace power-based system within rules-based system. Fourth is ensuring transparency. WTO ensure trade policies are published. Decisions should be open and clear to everyone. Now, which reduces misunderstandings. Now, countries must notify WTO, disclose trade measures. Transparency builds trust and stability. Fourth is, fifth is working with other organizations. WTO cooperates with global economic institutions. The objectives of this is very clear: efficient world trade, higher standard of livings, full employment, and expansion of production in goods, services, and investments. Supporting developing countries. WTO support countries through WTO support developing countries through technical assistance, training programs, and guys, reason is very simple. Equal rules do not mean equal capacity. Support is necessary. No, support is necessary. Next topic is guiding principles of WTO. Friends, these are the foundation of WTO system. Now, what are the principles is talking about and what are the objectives? Let's understand. The first principle is most favored nation. Now, what does it means? Friends, MFN means equal treatment to all trading partners. That is, a country normally cannot discriminate between its trading partners. If that means if a country gives a special trade favor, that is, it can be low tariff, better access to one country, the same favor must be given to all the WTO members. These rules applies automatically by default. Now, now the question arises in your mind is why this MFN exists? What is the logic of this MFN? Friends, now without MFN, without this principle, powerful countries would favor only allies. Small and poor countries would be excluded. So, most favored nation ensures, this principle ensures equality of opportunity in global trade regardless of the power. My God, what a good point. No discriminations between the members. So there is a less chances of disputes. Now, but yes, there is an exception to the MFN. Now, MFN is not absolute, guys. Means exception exists to balance fairness with development. That is free trade agreement. Now, FTAs. Countries can give special treatment within the regional group to promote deeper integrations. Friends, we have already studied what is FTA. Second, special access to developing countries. Now, yes, developed countries may give preferential market access to support development to the poor countries and protection against unfair trade practices. If any member country found कि MFN, due to an MFN, the dumping is getting created, so MFN cannot be used to justify unfair competition. This exception shows WTO promotes fairness and not rigidity. Right? The second principle is national treatment. Now, what does it means? Friends, national treatment means imported goods and domestically produced goods must be treated equally. Means foreign goods and domestic goods should be treated actually equally. That is called national treatment. But why this clarification is important? How it works, how this principle works. Friends, national treatment applies, yes, only after the goods enter the market, after getting imported. So, charging custom duty. Now you're going to see, okay, if both are at par, then custom duty should not be charged. Now, no, 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 no. Guys, you can say it's an exception. Charging custom duty on import is not a violation of national treatment because custom duties are actually charged to make now to protect domestic industries and to create a fair competition in India in a domestic market. Why? Now, you can understand in this way why national treatment is important. Guys, if imported goods were taxed more and regulated more, then the market access would be a meaningless. National treatment ensure actually fair competition inside the domestic market. The third principle is free trade, that is gradually through negotiation. Friends, meaning is very clear. What WTO actually promotes, WTO does not force instant free trade. Okay, this you have to keep in your mind. Instead, it promotes gradual reduction of trade barriers through negotiations. Now, what are trade barriers? Now, it will going to come as you have already studied, but then too, trade barrier include custom duty, import bans, now quotas and administrative delays. Friends, how WTO handle this? Barriers are reduced step by step. It's a gradual trade liberalization. It's not on the spot. It's a gradual trade liberalization. Barriers are reduced step by step. This process is called progressive liberalization. This process is called progressive liberalization. Why? Now you're going to think why this gradualism is necessary. Friends, sudden openness can destroy industries. Developing countries need adjustment time. Even for example, if we apply a new rule on your career also, you're going to say please give us a breathing space. So developing countries need adjustment time. Therefore, developing countries are given more time to meet obligations. Oh, now the principles are actually neutral and growth oriented. Hope you're getting it. Fourth principle is predictability through binding and transparency. Guys, transparency, clarity is most important principle everywhere, not in WTO. So this principle focus on stability, logically stable and clear trade. Meaning of predictability, now if you're going to understand, predictability means trade rules are stable, trade policies are clear and known in advance. Now, why predictability matters? Guys, stability encourage investments, job creation, consumer benefits, uncertainty discourage long-term decisions, right? Then, binding commitments, of course, country fix a minimum tariff rate that is also called bound rate. Now you have already studied this in part A. Now, trade barriers, actual tariff charged cannot exceed the bound rate. So developed countries versus now, so you can say that developing countries actual tariff is usually lesser than the bound rate, and developed countries actual tariff can be either equal now are usually same. Changing bindings. Can, once the agreement has been signed, the things that has been terms and condition has been decided, can it be changed? Yes, of course. Rigidity cannot be possible everywhere. Now, rigidity always bring distraction, so flexibility should always be there. Changing bindings, guys, allowed only after negotiation. Yes, if you want to change anything, you have to go with the negotiation. You have to re-talk with that member countries. Compensations may be required. Of course, breach of contract, breach of agreement can attract compensation. This prevent sudden and arbitrary tariff hikes. Now, transparency measures. Friends, transparency measures are trade rules must be clear and public and transparent. Government must push public trade policies and notify to WTO. Transparency build trust in the system. Right? Next principle, promote fair competition. Guys, promote fair competition. Listen to it. Promote fair competition. Now, the name itself indicates what are the advantages of promoting fair competition. Guys, WTO sometimes describe free trade, right? Am I correct? Yes. Now, institution as that is not entirely accurate. They allow tariff and limited protections. Objective is open trade, fair trade, and undistorted competition. It's a general principle. The above all the principles which you have studied is actually a supporting. Now, promoting and development only. Am I correct? WTO support for economic development and ठीक है. Second principle is encourage development and economic reform. WTO says my objective is not only to just create a trade between the two countries. No, 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 no. Along with the businesses, we want all the member countries should grow every year. So the next principle is encourage development. Supporting to the economic development, developing countries are given a flexible time period, special assistance, trade concessions to low developed countries or developing countries. Why this support is necessary? Of course, first you should understand this. Rules may be the same, but capacity is not, guys. Yes. Now, some rules has been created which might be very easy to adopt for the developed countries, but might be difficult to adopt for the developing countries. So they should get some breathing space and time. Now, man, so I can say that equality of rules does not means equality of ability. Wow, wow, what a dialogue I have given. So key facts are more than three-fourth. So why this is done? Guys, key facts are more than three-fourth of WTO members are actually developing countries. So during Uruguay round, over 60 of these countries liberalized the trade, played a more active role in negotiation. So friends, least developed countries should be given a time and little bit easy hand holding. So special treatment to LDCs. LDCs are given a transition period for implementation, good time gap, slowly and gradually. Technical assistance are provided for development, duty-free imports and quota-free import. So development needs to support. बराबर? Now, and here it's the picture is clear. Development is needs support, not a shocking for them. So these are the good liberal rules for them. So approx six WTO principles are there now, which is very clear, unbiased principles. Am I correct? Now, let's get into the second part, WTO agreement. Friends, now we need to move to an individual WTO agreement. Each one will be explained with purpose, reasons, and key points, guys. The first agreement. Now, the first point, the common, why these agreements has been signed between the member countries. Guys, logic is very clear. Now, many member countries are taking a undue advantage of various non-tariff measures to restrict the imports and to distort the fair trade. So, what WTO have thought, let's now sign these agreements so that trade can be very fair between the member countries and they should not use this all swords for undue advantage or for any excuses which hamper the international trades. Okay, so the first agreement and the hot agreement is agreement on agriculture. Guys, what was the purpose of this agreement? Now the purpose is very clear. Guys, this agreement to improve agriculture products, now trade in agriculture products and strengthening the GATT rules. Guys, in a when earlier GATT was there, now which was replaced by WTO, in the GATT there was a huge dispute between member countries was on agriculture concept. So now the clarity brought by WTO. Why this agreement is needed actually? Guys, agriculture was highly protected earlier. Subsidies were distorted the trade actually. So we need this agreement to promote now the trade of agriculture. So what are the key points? What are the other points due to which agriculture trade can be promoted? Now, WTO members make a binding commitments actually on market access, domestic supports, export subsidies, etc. And the objective is actually very clear, to reduce trade distortions in agriculture. Second agreement, agreement on sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Friends, you know what is SPS? We have studied in a non-tariff barriers. Now, but the purpose of this agreement is actually is to regulate food safety and health measures, of course. Now, ठीक है, which damage to the health of human, animals and plants. Why needed? Friends, this agreement is actually must needed between the member countries to stop countries from using health rules and as a hidden trade barriers. Many countries are using this like a excuse now to distort the import restrictions. That's why we call it non-tariff measures. But government want that you should use these SPS measures not to hinder the trade barrier but to protect. But in the name of protection you are covering, now then this will not be done. So agreement will going to make sure this between the member countries. The key points are very simple. Measure should not be arbitrary. Now, and this agreement should not act as a disguised restrictions on trade. And this agreement is the purpose of this agreement is actually to minimize adverse effect on international trade. Okay. Next, third one is agreement on textile and clothings. Now, how to trade now between the clothing of import and export between the member countries. Now, what was the purpose of this agreement? The purpose of this agreement is to govern international trade in textile and clothing. Why this agreement is needed actually? Guys, earlier there was a now one agreement which the name was multi-fiber agreement. Now, it was very restrictive and it was used for trade distortion. So earlier MFA allowed heavy import restrictions. Now it was very restricted. So by agreement on textile clothing, MFA multi-fiber agreement was earlier, it was there, it was replaced by ATC. Now, an integrated textile trade into gate rules and transition period is considered as a 10 years. Means this agreement will not be applied on the countries on the spot. 10 years period will be given so that gradually they make the changes now as per these agreements. Oh, so the transition should be very smooth. Now, it should not create a damages. Fourth, agreement on technical barriers to trade. Again, this technical barriers are used to protect the imports and to distort the trades. So this agreement is must needed. Now, what was the purpose of this agreement? Now, guys, prevent technical standards from becoming unnecessary trade barriers. See, all the purpose of all the agreement is to restrict the trade barriers. Now, these these all agreements are signed that because of this technique, these are the actions should not be used now to restrict the trade but should be used for a healthy competition. Now, why this agreement is needed? Excessive standards can restrict free trades. Right. So the key point, promote transparency. This agreement help to promote transparency and standards. Now, encourage harmonization with international standards between member countries, and it is applied to actually manufacture goods and safety environment rules. Fifth agreement is actually a agreement on trims, agreement on trade related investment measures. The purpose of this agreement is to regulate investment measures related to trade. Am I correct? International trade. Why this agreement is needed? Ensure free trade treatment of foreign investors. Now, what are the key points of this agreement? Friends, the key point is investment must follow national treatment, means foreign investment and domestic investment should be at par. Then elimination of quantitative restriction and prohibits local content. Now trade balancing requirement. Yes, such conditions should not be put to discourage. Sixth agreement is anti-dumping agreement. Guys, this agreement is actually needed now to protect the domestic trade as well as for a healthy transactions between member countries. Now, to stop the now selfish restrictions, selfishness. Anti-dumping agreement. What is the purpose? Purpose is very clear. Deal with dumping in international trade. Why this agreement is needed? To prevent misuse of anti-dumping duties for protection. Of course, they should not misuse anti-dumping duties. Key points. Now, guys, the other points of anti-dumping, the purpose is law lays down rules for calculating dumping margin. Of course, between the member countries, they should understand how much dumping margins can be charged maximum. Regulate dumping investigations. The intention should be get regulated and prevent unfair protections. Now, then next seventh is customs valuation agreement. Guys, customs valuation. Custom valuations are done to charge import duty. The purpose of this agreement is establish uniform rules between the member countries that how the value of imported goods can be measured. There should be a common base to measure the value of the goods. So that stability should be maintained between all the member countries. Why it is needed? To avoid arbitrary and discriminatory valuation practices, of course. Now, when standard rules and standard formulas are there to value the goods and services, now cheating, the chances of cheating is getting reduced. Key points, of course, to ensure consistency and transparency in valuation, harmonized custom valuation system should be achieved internationally. Next, 8. Agreement on pre-shipment inspections. Agreement on pre-shipment inspections. Purpose is very clear. It regulates inspection before shipments. Now, friends, pre-shipment inspections means now before the goods get shipped for import. Now, what inspection measures should be considered? Regulate inspection of goods before shipment. Why it is needed? Friends, if this agreement would not be signed between the member countries, what importing countries do? They increase the formalities and it become more restrictive to import, to restrict the import. Now, so to ensure fairness and transparency in inspection procedures. Now, the key points is other key points are inspection includes quality, quantity, price, and tariff classification conducted in exporting countries. Yes, because the goods get shifted from exporting countries and it is sent to the importing countries. Now, and dispute settlement mechanism should be provided. So, undue condition should not be imposed in the name of pre-shipment inspections. Ninth, so many agreements are there total. Agreement on rules of origin. Guys, the purpose is of this agreement is to determine the country of origin of goods, where these goods are created, where these goods are manufactured. Why it is needed? Why this agreement is needed? Guys, to avoid confusion and misuse of original rules. Okay. Now, key points. It applies to non-preferential trade areas. It harmonizes the rules, means importing countries knows from which country the goods are coming up and where it is originated. So accordingly, now measures can be taken and dispute settlement mechanism is everywhere it is. Next, 10th agreement, agreement on import licensing procedure. Guys, importing countries, you know this we have studied. Now it is a non-tariff barrier. Now, at most, sometime if importing countries don't want to purchase the goods from any country, they never say directly no. They impose lot of restrictions, right? and they restrict the trade. So WTO says between member countries the agreement should be there how the licensing procedure should be now unified, harmonized. Purpose is very clear to regulate procedure of import licensing. Why needed? To ensure licensing does not restrict the trade. Key points are the procedure should be very simplified procedure. Now it should be transparent and fair operations and prevent licensing from acting as a trade barrier. Now this licensing procedure should not act as a trade barrier. Then 11th, agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures. Now to understand these all agreements, first you should know all the non-tariff measures, guys. Now CVD and subsidies. Sometimes heavy subsidies encourage exports and restrict the imports also. So it should not government countries should not take undue advantage of it. So the purpose of this agreement is to regulate use of subsidies in international trade. Now to regulate subsidies, whether subsidies are used a healthy action procedure or now the subsidies are given to distort the trade. Why it is needed? To prevent unfair advantage, undue advantage due to subsidies. Of course, the key points are define subsidies clearly between the member countries. If any country want to give subsidies, how much it should be. Classification subsidized by type and countervailing duty procedures should be there. Countervailing duty procedure should be there. Agreement on safeguards. Of course. Now, in the name of safety, many importing countries restrict the trades. So, these all measures should not be used as a shield to restrict the imports and exports, but it should be used as a safety measures. Genuineness should be there. Now, it should not be used as an excuses. Purpose is very clear. Temporary, first thing, safeguard is actually a temporary protection to the domestic industries. Of course, it should not be permanent. Safeguard measure should not be permanent, it should be temporary whenever needed. Now the domestic industry should be protected from the foreign goods. At that time it should be applied, and when normalcy becomes, it should be removed. Now, to protect industries from sudden import surges, of course, now safeguard measures should be used as an emergency action and not as a planned action. Now, and it should be a temporary import restriction, not should be a permanent. Because if you're permanently restricting, it's called embargoes, it's not safeguards. Then you're banning some of the products. Banned is not a safeguarding. Used only when import increases sharply. It should be used when emergency get created, whenever needed. Now, should not take undue advantage. That's why agreements are needed. General agreement on trade in services. Oh, guys, here where the GATT was not covered the services, but in modern world, we are not importing and exporting only goods. We are importing and exporting services also. So the agreement should be there. Purpose is very simple: govern international trade in services, like we were governing international trade in exports and imports of goods. Why needed? Service trade needed separate global rules, of course, because it is the restrictions or the rules and regulations framed on goods trade cannot be the same on services. Key points includes MFN, of course, and transparency obligation. Similar principles which is applied on goods. Similar principles will be applied on services also. Covers only committed service sectors. Of course, not all the services will be covered for import and export. Only committed service sectors now will be covered in this agreement, and no stricter restrictions on agreement commitments. Of course, it's a very general to promote import and export of services also. Now, agreement on TRIPS. The full form of TRIPS is trade related aspects of intellectual property rights. Guys, the main concept is now to protect intellectual property rights globally so that it should not be copied. Otherwise, now it's of no use. Why needed? To encourage innovation and creativity, because only innovation and creativity can now develop your country as well as the world. Key points: cover copyrights, patent and trademarks so that your goods, your formula should not be get copied in the other countries. MFN and national treatment, of course, require effective enforcement mechanism. Fine. So what was the purpose of TRIPS? Now to encourage innovation and creativity. Next, 15th, trade policy review mechanism. Guys, whenever any member country will going to change or make a policy on import and export, it's a duty of WTO now department to review that agreements and to make sure whether that import and export rules of individual countries, member countries, are in the line of WTO objectives or not. If it does not match to the WTO objective, then WTO organization will give some advisory services. See to it. Review trade policies of WTO members. Of course, this is the purpose. Now, to improve transparency and accountability. The purpose is very clear. Now, key points review conducted by Trade Policy Review Body, which is one of the committee department of WTO and monitor trade practices. The intentions are judged by their policies, whether they are restrictive policies or whether they are harmonized policies. Plurilateral trade agreement. Oh ho ho ho. Now, first thing, the agreement among selected WTO members. Plurilateral trade agreement means now a selected WTO members can make a separate now agreements among the member countries. Why needed? Some issue concern only a group of countries. See, some problems are issued by generally all the members, and might be there are some specific problems are there which is faced by only few countries. So when some problems are faced by only few countries, then the rule should be made only for the few countries as an exception. So this is called plurilateral trade agreement. Now, key points, not all WTO members are involved. This is the most important, based on common interest, and not all are within WTO framework. Of course. So these are the 16 basic agreements which is actually signed between all the member countries. So the clear objective is they should not use these all areas as a trade restriction, but they should use it as a safety and trade encouragement measures. So agreement will going to give clarity between all member countries. It will boost confidence and world trade will be get encouraged. And the main objective of WTO is to make the entire world as a single village. The purpose will be get solved. So friends, I can say that WTO is not about free trade alone. It is about fair, predictable and rule based trade. Hope you understood. So that's it, my dear students. This was your quick revision session. Simple words, clear concept. Now there is no room for confusion. If you understood everything in one go, say yes, sir, and give it one more quick revision. Remember, smart study is the best strategy. Keep revising, stay confident, and believe in your preparation. And don't forget to tell your friends that these notes are total exam lifesaver. Stay consistent, stay motivated, and I will see you in the next rapid fire revision.